Just had a rather bizarre incident then. Just emptying out the ashtray from the wood stove. Into here, as I do, into the big pit. See all the bloody ash going down there. And there's sort of another ledge which is sort of just there. You can barely see, it's half collapsed. And I come out here to pull the ash down, and Black Kitty's standing down on the ledge there or doing something, and she comes running up through the ash here. You can even see the damn dimples where she's been walking up and down. Boom, boom, boom. I don't know what the hell is going on. Hey, what are you doing down there, hey? That's an ash hole. There's nothing down there but dirty old ash. And a few collapsed bricks and stuff. I reckon I know where you might be getting your mice from. Bloody mice might be burrowed in a combination of the ash and the down-hanging vine. They might have nests in the base of the vines, backed up by a bit of ash or something. This could be where all these mice are coming from. A bit more to all that. When I got out of bed, she was in bed with me, and I got out and I made some eggs, and I come out just to put something in the recycling bin there, the yellow, not the diesel there, but the yellow top bin, and yellow top green bin, and she had a mouse, and I thought, hang on a minute, you were in my bed 10 minutes ago, and somehow you found a mouse almost straight away, and you mustn't have gone too far, and you didn't have much time to look. I mean, it was only 10 minutes to look from since you got out of my bed. And there's a possibility that she's finding ones in here, and that's exactly what she's doing down there. I sort of find it so strange how she gets stuff around the house, and my assumption has been that it's actually underneath the house that she's grabbing these mice from. Because there's... Or, you know, the box thorns. They're definitely going to be hiding amongst the box thorns. But, like, around here there's a lot of stuff, but there's not a lot of clumps of grass. And often enough, you know, they'll be sort of trying to build a nest in the base of a clump of grass. And that may be one of the big hot spots that they're coming from. I didn't really expect that at all. By the way, that lamb I was talking about half an hour ago, in the last half hour since I've been talking about it, it now won't even stick its head up. It's just laying there. Can't even get up, it's just blooming breathing, so right there. It's just laying there. Not even enough strength to bear at me like it did as I was mucking around with the wood heater. So this is the thing, you know, I could have gone and saved it, theoretically. It would take me at least 2 hours to be able to get my hands on this specific formula, get a bottle, wash the bottle out, buy a teat, heat the milk up, fucking rah. By the time I drive to these places to buy this shit, it would have been 2 hours, and only half an hour later, it's not even strong enough to sit its head up. So basically, if I had a go at trying to save it, by the time I turned up with the milk, it would have been fucking dead anyway. And I might just put it out of its misery before too long. The blue blazers are you doing, cat? Geez, you're acting strange. She's been fighting with that the last minute or so as I've been talking. It's funny like that, she'll fight with a plant and then start biting it, and end up eating one of the leaves off it. Anyway, it's one of these things, you know. Small bodies need feeding a lot of the time, you know, and you can save a lamb who's got a potential of being worth $100. But you're going to have to get up and feed it 6 or 7 times a day. You're going to be getting up every 4 hours to feed this bloody thing, or less than that. You know, initially, yeah, it's 6 or 7 times a day you got to feed these things, and I know of farmers' wives who have had as many as a dozen in 1 year, but they destroy the damn sleep patterns, getting up at midnight, you know, and again at bloody 4 or 5 a.m. to feed the thing again, and blah blah blah. And when the thing's full potential is going to be worth $100 at best, which it probably isn't, because they're going to turn out runts anyway. Yeah, you sort of wonder if it's really worth it, and most people believe it isn't. At one point, the rendering plant used to pay you $40 each, so if they died, you weren't too bad off anyway. What I'm saying is you'd negate any responsibility of getting up every 4 hours to feed the blasted thing, and in the process get half the amount of money you would have got if it was, you know, a year old anyway. But all those days are gone. Yeah, there ain't the money in rendering plants like there was blooming 15 years ago. Now they actually charge you money to come out and pick stuff up. And I found all that at the piggery. Alrighty, this is just a very quick butchering trick done to the one that died in labour. Didn't go that well. Bit hard to skin. It's not like a rabbit where you just grab hold and you got all this bloody sinew and crap, and this was trying to hang on to the actual skin, so it actually tore the muscle as opposed to come away clean. And of course it rolled over in the dirt, and I've got all these bits of bloody grass in it. And I've tried to wash it, and in the process you get all this gelatine. When you butcher things, it's lovely to have a nice clean environment. It doesn't always work that way when you're trying to butcher it where it dropped dead. Generally speaking, you shouldn't butcher anything that's dropped dead, especially if it's died of some disease or some toxicity or something like that, you know, and that toxicity or disease or poisoning can be transferred to your pussycat and kill your cat. But I know exactly what this died of, and henceforth it's not a problem because it's died in labour. There's not going to be anything in there that's going to cause me cat to drop dead. So anyway, I'll probably whack that one in the fridge and whack that one in the kitty food bowl, and they can chew away at that for the next few days, and then go into that one. Technically speaking, I could eat that stuff myself, but well, you know, there's grass and shit in it and stuff that I've got to tie half a freezer full of bloody nice clean butchered stuff. So anyway, hopefully it's a bit nicer for the kitties to eat some real stuff with actual real meat as opposed to a bunch of dry kibbles. Anyway, I'll grab a couple of bags here and I'll bag the other one up and dump the other one straight in the bowl. Hey, you like a pussy? Hey? Debbie Cat was on the bed, and I picked him up off the bed and plunked him in front of it, and he was more interested in going back and snoozing, weren't you? So he went out to the front veranda and kept snoozing, and Black Kitty's going like a wild animal there. Can't really see her, but she's got the claws into part of it and the teeth into the rest of it. She was sort of sniffing at it for a while, and then I started patting her, and then she was purring, and then she's purring and started to lick the thing, and she just started by eating all the blooming gelatinous sinew on the outside, and now she's holding it down with both feet and going for real. So that's good anyway, you know, things like that. Just some of the ways they've been with. They're funny. The first time I gave them sheep fat, they just sort of looked at it and thought, what the hell? And they ate all the biscuits around the sheep fat, wouldn't touch the sheep fat. And yet I've seen certain little putty tats trying to grab lamb chops off me plate Isn't that right? Actually, it was Black Kitty trying to grab the lamb chops off the plate. My uncle used to get the same thing with his dogs. In fact, they were even more game. When he was living in that old camper there, it's actually my parents' one, and when he basically got bankrupted, he ended up living in that on the side of the road out the front of his old property until the cops told him basically fuck off. And then he lived in it at his mate's place for a while, just up the road, and then eventually, probably about a month after the bankruptcy was all done, or 6 weeks or so, had landed there and has never moved since. And yeah, when he was in there, all those rocks near the front drive here, he used to park his car right where I used to have that blue wagon sitting right here. And right about around here somewhere, somewhere near all these rocks anyway, he used to have an open fire. And this open fire was what he'd cook on. And I mean, literally, he's living in this, sitting in his car, using his interior lights in his car to read stuff, sitting in there with fucking candles or whatever, and cooking on an open fire here. He used to have a bit of corrugated iron he'd pull over the top of the bloody fire if it started raining. And he literally had a frying pan. I don't know if it's that. Well, there's a stainless steel one I've got over here, which I think might have been the actual frying pan. Or it may have been the cast iron one that I gave him, because I gave him a cast iron one. And he used to cook stuff like lamb chops and everything straight on that frying pan, sitting on top of a couple of the bloody rocks that he had the wood fire going amongst. Talk about living like a caveman. And his friggin' dogs, a couple of times, would actually come up, grab hold of the chop and run off with it. And like he'd have 3 chops and he'd turn around and there'd be only 2. And he said, I don't know how the dog would grab it out of the frying pan without burning its nose, but it still did anyway. Anyway, I suppose I better show you guys what I've been up to. Yeah. Well, here we go. I got stuck into some of the bits and pieces I had here, a lot of which was questionable if it was termites or not. And the actual termite stuff, which was round there, is now right here. Some of it I've actually got burning in the wood stove right now. So, just boiling up a few potatoes. I've got to boil up some eggs for tomorrow. Actually, leaving those for shiitake mushrooms, because that's all hardwood. That's all come off of the big gum tree. Probably no point, but oh well, I might as well throw it in anyway. Couple of bits here which are sort of a bit suspect. I'll cut those up with a reciprocating saw at a later point. But essentially speaking, I've got rid of all the stuff in here. You know, I don't know, some of you guys remember that smut? Well, that was sitting on this log. And of course, all the shit was everywhere. Now you can walk right in through here. A lot of this here is just weighted down by that one, which I explained before. But a lot of the other stuff I've gotten rid of. Threw a whole heap of stuff out through there. That's already burnt, that's already gone. And yeah, the ground's clear enough to walk in and out. And I'm pretty much sorted. There is one little bit that's still hanging in here, that piece there, that I could get out by wrestling the box thorn, but I don't know if it could really be stuffed. Corrugated iron pulled up from under the ground there. Long story short, I'm going to leave a bit of this for wind cover. This one here has a decent amount of wind cover, but essentially it's going to have to come down if we're going to get a tractor in, because it hangs so bloody low. But when the day comes, I'm going to probably slip this and maybe slip there and a couple of those branches or whatever. The only real thing I've got left to do is just move these rocks, and I'll get to that at some later point. some of them are very well defined. There's all the chance in the world that was actually cut that way deliberately. But anyway, we got all that out, and what I haven't got for firewood is either bloody large logs or actual firewood that's halfway through being burnt, or actual stuff that's completely gone. This is out of the way. Oh, I've got to burn those couple there in a second. They probably should go in the wood stove next. Yeah, that's that. So we're down burning over back down the hill where we were before we bought a wood heater up here. And that's that there. Now I'll go and show you what happened with all this. Well. As you can tell, I had a bit of a psychotic trimming session, and got little stubs on the ground and that. I know that now it's going to be hard to tow them out, but a lot of them were actually snipped low beforehand and then branched out to another 5 or 2 or 3 or whatever. So they've all been cut at ground level, and all bloody will come back, as they do. You cut them off at ground level, you don't kill them, and you just prune them. But what I'm going to have to do, there's more of them in there, what I'm going to have to do is get the front end loader around here and just slam the bucket into this. This is all some of the stuff, a bit more of it's around here that I clipped off, and I just sort of kept kicking it sideways, kicked it into there. We're going to have the front end loader come around and just sort of crush all this here, just to sort of compress it more so that I can then burn it. To help the situation along. I don't know if you can see that, but I got stuck in with the chainsaw and just went straight through all that shit and some other ones down there. You can see it anyway, with the chainsaw. And so that when he compresses this, that'll be that. But hit this with a flipping, the loader bucket or the backhoe bucket. And then the plan is to actually turn the backhoe straight into the soil here and just start tearing the soil up. Now, not going to go into it, but a little while ago we were doing something with that backhoe, probably only 5 or 6 weeks back, and he came across a big pile of dirt and slammed the blooming bucket straight into this pile of dirt that was bloody 5 foot tall and just ripped us straight through like it didn't mean shit. And having said that, with a 26.6 foot boom on the thing, I hope to, of course, slam into this here and pull that way. And basically tear all these out by sort of slamming into the ground here, sink the bucket down a foot, 1.5 feet, and just keep tearing backwards to basically just break up the soil. Because, I've seen him break up a 5 foot pile of soil just in, it was like frickin' 15, 20 seconds. And basically be able to rip these out by the roots just by slamming the bucket in and breaking the soil up. And then I'll have to go through and just sort of pluck them out. But it'll loosen all the soil up with about bloody 20, 30 seconds of tearing away at the ground here. And then we can take them out, roots and all, after he's compressed this, and just throw them on the top. But this will then be compressed enough to burn, and whatever the heck's sitting on the top will just burn with it. Very interesting. I pulled a root up. I actually pulled that out by hand and cut it with a reciprocating saw right there. But I just thought I'd leave it in place just to show how bloody long it is. I mean, they say that stuff under the ground, there's as much roots under the ground in a tree as there is above the ground. And when you pull out trees, I sort of don't think there is often. I think there's about only a third underground what there is above the ground. But I tell you what, that bloody root there is coming from them ones there. And I've got it out of the ground there. And I reckon the friggin' roots are longer than this bastard is tall. So, no damn wonder the things are so resilient to have roots that are probably another bloody 3 or 4 foot longer than the blasted tree is, or the bush is actually tall. That's crazy. Now I may note that when I got to these ends, the remaining roots have broken off underground, even though they're still 3/4 of an inch thick. So realistically, the roots are probably right out here somewhere. But anyway, that was that. I trimmed up a few other little bits and pieces, and oh, that's right, I've still got to burn this shit too. This one here, I might hit that with a reciprocating saw just to trim there or whatever, and probably take this one down and jam it in the little wood heater that's running over there. Nothing to say I couldn't just trim them up and shove them in the wood stove, but which would probably be easier instead of carrying them all that way. There's a couple bits here. I've still got to just turf in the wood stove when the time comes. Another bit of reciprocating saw stuff. Tell you what, I made good use of that reciprocating saw. By hell, it gets some use. Some point in the game, I'll probably cut this one up too and throw that in the wood stove. But yeah, well, at least half of it anyway. Anyway, that's what sort of happened yesterday, and I had better go and put the eggs on the wood stove and take the potatoes off. Oh, you can't see much, you probably don't want to. Bit of wool there. Anyway, just had to deal with another one. Fucking hell. It's not a good season, I'll put it like that. Oh, shit. You know, I predicted there was going to be flooding. They got it in the eastern part of the state, not in the western part of the state where I am. Just nothing. Besides, you know, 1/8 of an inch here and maybe there, and meanwhile, even where my sister is, you know, it's tremendous amounts, bloody 6-8 inches in one hit, you know. And that's 2 weeks into winter, but realistically the rains usually come in the last month of autumn, at the start of the last month of autumn, like about 6 weeks ago. I remember a time when I was fixing the house up, and basically, well, at one point the whole property was closed off, and then at another point it was the front half up to the almond trees was closed off until we'd done that fence, as you guys seen about a year or so back, whenever it was. Yeah, it would have been, oh geez, nearly a year and a half ago now. Anyways, during that time I was fixing the house up, some of you know that crappy white truck that I'm busting to see go into scrap metal, but I'm told I can't because it's got a diesel engine. You know the little things, little Datsun light truck, whatever you want to call it. The grass on that bastard was right up to the top of the bed of the truck, and basically level with the bloody bottom of the window. That was how high the grass was around that truck. You know, there's, you know, I've found thistles, including variegated thistle, sow thistle, grass that's even taller than me, variegated thistle that had a 14-inch wide, not long, 14-inch wide leaf. We've had some good years, you know, and well, this isn't one. And yeah, you know, by now there should be decent, you know, the grass should be up to the middle of my bloody car tyres. Like, you know, right where the axle is, basically, where the wheel bearing is. Nowhere near it. It's not even as tall as my bloody thumb is wide. And they're just weak, you know. Some sheep, like that one I just knocked off, it goes to go into labour, covered in blood on the back end, but nothing happens. Can't push it out, doesn't have the energy to have the contractions. Cervix closes up, 10 days later it goes septic and it just stinks like hell and just dies. This one was so weak, being laying on the flipping mud outside, but primarily the lack of decent grass growth, that's it. It's just, you know, just didn't have the energy to do it. And in what contractions it did have, just wore it out even more. The poor bastard couldn't even sit its head up. I went and set it up on a bunch of wood inside the machinery shed in the hope that it's going to be, not too cold and warm up of its own body heat, because it was decent. Like the frickin' wool on it's about, the wool's like 3 inches thick on the thing. And, hours later, it still can't even lift its head up, and it's just like, try and sit it up, fuck around with it, nothing's happening. As I slit the throat there, some of the water broke, or some of the amniotic fluid come out the back, basically, but it's all too late. The cervix was so tight that I couldn't even get my little finger into it, and how the hell are we going to pull a lamb out of that? There's another thing that happens too that I've seen happen. It's called pregnancy toxemia, and we lost, it was like about 10 or 12 sheep in the space of like 4 hours from this. And what it is, it's they're under stress, and what will save them is basically it's a calcium injection, and calcium, and I think there might be iron or something like that, but they'll basically just, under stress with bad feed, it only happens with pregnant ones, and the first thing they do is they go into labour and they abort their lamb. So you're sitting there with all these premature lambs being born, and then they start frothing at the mouth, literally like they've got fucking rabies or something, and then they just die. And some of them, the lamb doesn't even get out, and they're dead, and what is basically happening is the body realises it's going downhill. Now, when they're in the paddock, it's fine, but when you've got them, and it happened with us when we put them in yards, that little bit of extra stress puts an already down on its knees, so to speak, sheep into this state where it's just too much for it. And as some sort of an attempt for the body to save itself, it aborts its lamb so that it isn't trying to have to, put energy into keeping a lamb inside it. But unfortunately, it's inevitably on the downhill run by that time, and the lamb's aborted and it's fucking dead 45 minutes later, and when you see it happen in a couple, you've got to get straight to a vet's and get this fancy injection, which is exactly what we've done. And we saved probably half a dozen just with that injection. But if you don't get to them quick enough, that's it, you've lost them, sort of thing. And if you see one starting to die, you've got to get that damn injection. First of all, you've got to know what the fuck it is. Second of all, you've got to be able to identify it. Second of all, you have to get the damn injection, and then you watch the rest of them in a confined enough space. And any that just sit down and won't stand up, and it's starting to look like they're going down, bang, slam an injection in them. And it's quite a lot you've got to inject in. It's quite a large syringe and everything. And yeah, I've seen that, and effectively that may have been exactly what happened to one of them last week, or about 2 weeks ago, and this one here. Their body just can't handle it, and they've tried to abort it, but it's not quite the same because they don't froth at the mouth, but it's a similar thing where their body's under stress and they're trying to abort the lamb to save themselves. And while it wasn't full-blown pregnancy toxemia with the whole frothing at the mouth and that, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if they're going downhill anyway, and it's a similar sort of a situation. And I have seen, a few premature lambs. One was born, just outside my parents' house. and another one was at Chinese Boss's Vineyard, and they come out with no wool at all, and they're tiny, like they're about 14 inches long, 15 inches long, something like that. They're very small. They're not much bigger than my boot. My boot is size 13 US. And yeah, it also happens with poisoning. You might have heard of other animals that get poisoned that are pregnant. One of the first things they do is their body aborts the baby/babies. And that may be what is happening with some of these, but it's just fucked. You know, they're too weak. Even ones that do have lambs, they're looking very thin. You know, they're going all right, but they should be going better. But it just, yeah, pisses me off a bit, you know. I was thinking, you know, being told that we're not supposed to feed the sheep and blah, 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 and we've got no grain and not really much of a way of getting it. And trouble is when it's raining intermittently, if you get wet grain, it can swell up in the guts, and then that'll fucking kill them as well, which is why you sort of need not just straight wheat, but you need cracked wheat. And then you need to be able to keep it dry as you feed it to them and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, you know, most years it's sort of all right, but in a way it's sort of nature taking its course. Those who don't have the ability to digest food and extract all the nutrition out of it inevitably just end up collapsing. You know, there's another thing where I haven't seen it, my father's talked about it, and if you look at a sheep, they don't actually have front teeth. It's actually a hardened gum, but they've got bottom teeth at the front, but not top teeth. On the top, it's just a hard gum. So they can't really bite well, which explains why they pluck out all those bits of grass around my house, because they go to just pinch it between teeth and a hard gum and then pull, and it doesn't really break off all the time, especially when the roots aren't developed. So, yeah, that's why they keep pulling bits of grass out around my house. In that, there's some of them where the bottom jaw is actually like an inch too short, and the bloody teeth won't even line up with the gum, or something like that. It's just ridiculous. And if you have any of those, they're the first ones to die because they can't eat short grass. They can only eat long grass. So that's another one of these things. But, you know, I feel like feeding the bastards. I don't really want to spend a few $100s, but you just see shit like this and it's just like, fuck, we could have prevented this, you know. And he's always been on the thing of, I developed the farm not to feed sheep, but, you know, there's times where, in a good year it's fine. You know, as I said, the grass should be up to me bloody car axle by now, but it's not. And if it was, it'd be fine, but it's not. And these shit years, you know, you sort of feel like maybe we should be doing something, but anyway, I might have to work out a little plan and spend a few $100s on grain next year and just be secretly feeding them at my place or something. We'll see how it goes. I've got an idea of, as I said, using grey water to irrigate grass at the end of summer, so there's a certain patch that's got a jump start on the rest of the paddock sort of thing, and that's something there that would help them quite a lot. And there's, you know, there's people like Chinese Boss's Vineyard, the former owner of that. I don't think it was a former owner of that, I think it was the owner before him, back in 1993 and previous to that. They actually had irrigation rights out of that river, which I showed you guys, the big water pump, and they would deliberately irrigate the paddock next to the river to grow really fucking tall grass, so that when they hit the end of summer, they had this entire bloody 30 acres or so, 25, 30 acres of just completely irrigated grass that's fucking up above your knees. And they'd throw the sheep in there in the middle of summer and it wouldn't matter what everybody else was doing, their sheep would always be fine because they had this big patch that they'd irrigated while everybody else was walking around with fucking dust blowing everywhere, you know. And that's all nice, but we don't have a river frontage, and we got what we got.